Okay, so let's get started. Is it okay if I switch to English? Okay. So basically, there are two types of talks. One type is highly polished and informative, like the previous one from Marius. I hope mine is entertaining. So let's begin. A few things about me. I'm Ovi. I've been using Linux and terminals and love this stuff for over 20 years. I've been in web dev space for about 15 years. I'm a speaker of tim.js for over 10 years. Yeah, everything is in lots of years here. You can find me on Twitter/X under this handle. And I also have a personal website where I occasionally post different little tools and utilities that I do for fun and to try stuff out. First, the inspiration for this quite weird title. It all started with a tweet when about 1 year ago, Bungie tweeted, "What are you working on?" And Dex, the creator of OpenCode, replied with putting Go inside bun, whatever that means. What came was unexpected and cursed to that reply. Bun tweeted this image that went viral, and it's a great pleasure to share it with you and burn it in the back of your eyes forever. So, while contemplating this marvelous stuff full of nightmares, actually there is a realization to make. You can actually put a lot of things into bun. So, I put Ghostty into bun. Let's see quickly a demo about what I'm talking about. I'll switch to the demo. I think I have to hit escape here to make my terminal show. Yep. Okay. There it goes. The font is a bit small, but doesn't matter. Basically, don't know what to say. Yeah. Okay. I'm just running the command. There's an executable too, but in this case, I'm just running it using bun from source to start the CLI. And then if I open another browser tab, on localhost and this port, we wait a bit, and basically we have my terminal in a browser. I can type commands, run top, it runs quite smoothly. And this, just to have in mind, this is not a real terminal. This is a web page. These buttons are just CSS decorations, and the whole thing that you're seeing right here, it's a canvas element. We'll get quickly to how this was made. So back to the slides. If I can still find them. Okay, here it is. It's fine, it's full screen-ish. Okay. So next, the tech concretely, what I just show you. We have a cross-platform app. It's a binary that runs on Linux, Windows, and macOS. It's a single binary, it's portable, it's a single file executable, more exactly, just like Go. So basically you can pack together lots of stuff, including web servers, other tools, other utilities, whatever you can think of. You can actually put into bun, as to say, exactly like Go. The difference and why the previous tweets excited me is that however good of a language is Go, and I really like Go's design and the pattern of returning errors as values, it has a slight downside, might I say, although some don't consider it a downside. It doesn't have the feature-rich plugin packed ecosystem like TypeScript. So you either have to build lots of stuff from scratch, which is fine, but sometimes you just don't want to reinvent the wheel the 100th time, and npm install just you can quickly save a lot of time with pre-made, battle-tested, mature packages in the ecosystem. Being a single command, it's easy to run. You don't even have to download it. You just run npx and then the organization's name / your package name. It downloads it into a temporary directory and runs it, just like other utilities that you can run using npx. It's usable basically inside any runtime that can do a system call, because it's a CLI, it's a binary, you just call it, it returns output, and that's it. It's also displayable everywhere that has a web view. I wanted to say browser, but web view is more correctly, and I'm hinting at Electron. And the CLI form factor is also extremely nice, because we know that AIs love CLIs. You can add skills and basically easily teach your LLM to use the utility. I also saw something even without skills. If you put a new CLI and just mention it to the LLM, the first thing that it will try, if it doesn't recognize it, is to run --help, which tells a lot. Basically, they've been trained on lots of CLIs. Everything in Linux is a CLI, from cat, ls, whatever. But the real question that's on your mind right now, because I've mentioned terminals from the start, something really important to get over with, so your mind doesn't wander about it while I give the rest of the talk. Yes, it can run Doom, and I have a recording to prove it. So you can actually run whatever you want It's the ASCII version of Freedom, but yeah. Woohoo! Okay, let's move forward. I need to tell you how this idea of building a web-based terminal that you can run in a browser came about. It all started with a tweet. This guy, Mark Otto, tweeted something about introducing a diff rendering library that you can use. You give it input some blobs of text, content, and it would render very pretty nice configurable diffs in HTML form. You could select, for example, to be unified diffs, side by side, themes, anything you would want. And I wonder if this name is familiar to anyone. Raise of hands. I see someone. It's one of the creators of Bootstrap, the OG CSS framework that started all frameworks. Okay, so I was really curious and excited to hear the news. I downloaded the library. I didn't have an immediate need to put it inside of a project, an actual project like a web server or something like that to use it at that moment. But I thought, hey, what if I build a CLI utility to use the library? Because I I use OpenCode anyway, and as nice as diffs could get in a terminal, you have to just give the browser what's worth for the browser. Some things look better in HTML format than ASCII in a terminal. So I created a CLI diff for displaying diffs and a skill to run in OpenCode. It looks kind of like this. As I mentioned, it has lots of configurable themes. If you've used VS Code, you probably use something really similar to this. And then my mind started wandering, and I asked myself, what exactly is a modern IDE? What is it comprised of? Well, you have a text editor, right? You have a terminal, and you have some way to show diffs. But I already have now a CLI to display diffs in HTML format. I use NeoVim, by the way. So in my case, at least, and some other people, the two parts, text editor / terminal, basically merged into one. And what's missing? A terminal capable of rendering HTML in the browser and running NeoVim, of course. So my end goal is now stated and pretty clear. I'm going to build my own agentic IDE. Of course, it's going to be a wrapper on top of a wrapper on top of a wrapper, but today, anyways, wrappers are pretty popular, so peace. Okay, seriously now, this talk is not actually about terminals or Ghostty or Ban. That's what the app is about. But my goal is to talk about how to use Agentic AI from the perspective of learning. So it's about knowledge. Like if you've seen The Matrix, there's this scene where Neo downloads into his brain some recording of Kung Fu, and suddenly in 5 seconds he wakes up and says, I know Kung Fu. Basically, I feel like that's one of the really understated benefits of large language models. Sure, you can be fast, you can be productive, you can churn 1,000 features one after the other, and use AI to write them and use AI to review them. But you basically have a free tutor that can stay non-stop and answer without getting bored any technical questions. So I think that's really valuable. So quickly, I'll just enumerate the features that I managed to build for this app. The first thing, the first fact is that it's a real shell session using a real PTY. And what that means is that any program that runs inside of it believes it's a real shell. Like if you echo the term and the shell variables, it will just see something like it would see exactly if it would run directly into bash. So for any child process, there's absolutely no difference. The second feature that I wanted to add, I thought that, well, sometimes you don't want a full bash session. Maybe you just want some process to monitor your system. So I added the ability to run one-off commands. We can see here that the command is being run, and then when the command automatically exits with code 0, the session and the connection is disconnected, and there's basically enhanced security because there's no way to break out of the command that's being purposefully run to get to shell level in this case, because it runs directly via a process call. The third feature that I added and I found really useful, especially while creating this thing and debugging, was logging. And with this occasion, I found out that the name of this specific logging format that you see in systemd in Linux, and also in some other places. It's called logfmt. It's kind of similar to Pino's strict JSON format, except this is not JSON, it's just a series of key value pairs separated by space, and you can use any additional utility to color code everything to see more easily what gets printed. Another feature that I knew I would need is to run it on mobile devices, because there's lots of times when maybe you just leave your laptop, start the utility, and leave the house, and I don't know, hopefully not while you're driving, you're using the phone to send some commands to your terminal running on your laptop at home. And you need a dedicated custom UI, because as far as I know, there's no actual control or alt or tab buttons on the keyboard, at least not on iOS. Then what I knew from start, that I wanted this to work more than on just local host. That meant host mapping and having the ability to configure what the process binds to, what IP. And of course, security out of the box. Like I could have just printed this message important, always use a auth token, but of course users are users and they would completely ignore it. So I took the decision to, if you run --public and it binds to 000, meaning it would listen on your entire local network, then it would automatically generate an auth token out of the box, and there's basically no way to connect unless you enter that specified auth token. Of course, you can configure one yourself if you want to more easily remember it, but yeah, you can run it without token and with no security on the same device. So if I start it on my laptop in the terminal and then just alt tab to a browser, yeah, that's fine. But if it leaves the same computer, then you need an access token. The next feature, I've been doing front-end web development for a long time, and I really like aesthetic things. And of course, there's no terminal that could not have themes. So I added themes, and more themes, and even more themes, around 60. Of course, I didn't add this myself by hand. I knew some utilities that contained the Shiki-based kind of themes. That's how they're called. Maybe you remember them from embedded markdown in blog articles. They're copied. I used an LLM to parse them in the proper format that the library that I'm using to create the terminal expects, which is tim.js. That's the format. Yeah, then considering latency and the fact that maybe I want to run this on some $5 VPS on Hetzner in Germany and I'm in Romania, I wanted to move quite fast. It's okay the first time to take a while to download all the assets that it needs, but fonts, for example, can be 200, 300 kilo, one only, and if you have many fonts, it compounds. Then the Ghostty WebAssembly module, it's quite large as well. So one thing that I added is cache control. So stuff tries to only get downloaded once when you load it, and then if it's found in the browser cache, it gets reused. Okay, another feature that I didn't even know I needed, but I had to add, is a mobile text selection, because as I mentioned, the whole thing that you're seeing is a canvas element. So how do you select using the native iOS handler thingies? How do you select like pixel graphics? Those are not characters. And if you run commands and tail logs and stuff like that, if you cannot select and copy what you see, a terminal app, even a toy one, it's pretty useless. I took inspiration from Tmax, which has this concept of entering selection mode. Western has the same thing too. Then you would use the arrows to move the cursor from where it currently is, hit a key to mark a start selection point, then use the arrows again to kind of drag, and hit the stop selection point, and whatever is between those 2 points is considered the selection area, and you can then just copy it and it gets deselected. Of course, as I mentioned, I live to edit config files, so if I create a CLI utility, there's no point if it doesn't have a config file. And I also wanted to see how to properly actually design a config file. What would you use? What format? Like, of course, there's JSON, there's YAML, there's TOML. Hint, TOML is the best one from my point of view, because it's type safe. If you have a TypeScript parser, it can parse, like you see these 5 blocks. You can set required properties that have to appear, that for example have to not collide with other top level elements, etc. And it's really easy to read, a lot easier than highly nested JSON config file from my point of view. And of course, what happens if the power runs out or someone trips to your desktop computer cable and it gets restarted? You lose connection. It would be nice if, for example, maybe you have a home lab and you configure the server to auto restart on power failure and when the power comes back on, but the system needs to have a way to understand to restart the CLI utility too. Fortunately, on Linux systems, this is quite easy. There's this thing called user unit files. You just define configs in proper places. You give them the CLI path and exactly what commands to run. And you use the native system CRTL utility to reload the daemon. Yeah, everything in Linux is a daemon or a ghost or whatever. You restart it to make it aware of a newly added config file, and you can enable it. And from this point on, the simple CLI utility from the kernel's perspective is a full-blown service. Let's get to a diagram to more detail exactly how this was built. First, as I mentioned, we have the CLI, which is the core entry point of the app. This is the thing that you run from your command line. It takes parameters from multiple places, like from its args. You can pass args like port, host, etc. It reads environment variables. Currently, it just reads the port from the env. That's the most common one, especially when you deploy it on different VPSs and providers that usually have the port auto set for apps to listen to. And also it tries to read a config file if it finds one. The priority is in that order, so CLI args overwrite envs, overwrite configs, and when the CLI starts, it will automatically start a BAN server. This BAN server has some routes defined, and once we have a running backend server, basically, that listens on the specified port, any user in a browser or a web view can make requests to the /route. An index HTML file will be served. The index HTML file will load all the required assets like the CSS bundle, the JavaScript bundle, fonts, the Ghostty WebAssembly, and then it will run the JavaScript, and based on everything it already has, we'll create the first instance of the terminal client. This terminal client then sends a fetch request to the config API route to get useful information. For example, what theme to use, what font, is an auth token required or not, etc. Then optionally, if auth is enabled, it will look for an auth token in session storage. If it finds one, if not, it will prompt the user to enter one. It's sent to the server to verify, and if the verification is successful, then an additional request to upgrade WebSocket is sent to the server, and at this point we will have the first WebSocket connection. When the first WebSocket connection is open, the CLI, so not the BAN server, the CLI, the runtime code itself, will load a PTY. As I mentioned, the PTY is the kind of the fake terminal environment at OS level that makes other applications believe they run in a real terminal, and it handles escape sequences, column resizes, etc., whatever a terminal would handle. And the communication between the client and the PTY is finally locked in WebSocket through the BAN server as intermediary. So the PTY communicates with BAN, sending events that just happened. The bun server then sends via WebSocket this information. It could be in plain text, it could be in binary format, doesn't really matter, you can choose. It sends this info to the client terminal, which basically is just pretty dumb actually, and redraws itself. It has information what is currently on the screen, and basically it's like a React re-render in a way. So basically that was kind of it architecturally and feature wise, at least most of the important features. So next, let me just say and tell you about the lens through which I've built this app. I just created a markdown document one late evening, written what I wanted, ran it in a Ralph loop, left it overnight, and when in the morning when I woke up, everything worked, everything was fine. End of story. Thank you for joining my talk. I'm just kidding. Wouldn't that be sad, actually? Yeah. It's to be discussed. There are cases and environments and specifically work settings where pressures are tight and the backlog is huge and you have to move really fast. And if it's been agreed and decided to take whatever shortcuts in the interest of speed, of course you will need to align with the rest of your team and everyone else. But I urge you, at least on personal projects, on stuff that you build for yourself or for some friends, take a more mild approach. Try to actually care to understand, to find out more about what you build. Don't just run, I don't know, a markdown file, let it build, and that's it. So I mentioned that I'll give a few tips and tricks. I'm not no expert by any means. I just use this kind of flows quite a lot, and I found some stuff that appears to work, at least today, in 2 weeks. Who knows? Everything changes really fast, but these kind of are principles more than hacky tools. So one of the first things that you can integrate or think about is the prototyping phase. There are a lot of tools like V0, Lovable, Bolt. You probably heard of them. I used mostly V0. And what's their purpose, or where are they good at? I view them in specific contexts, like for example in 2 hours you have a meeting with a designer or a PO, and you need to bounce some ideas back and forth about what to build, why, how to look, etc. Then yeah, you can just generate a whole lot of stuff using these tools. I kind of see them as show and tell, or more specifically, I would say show then trash. So I highly doubt that you can build something long-term, reliable, and that you care about using as starting points exactly these tools. That's why we basically have the second phase, which is the bootstrap phase. It's when, for example, you start a new project, greenfield thing, either home, either at work. And for this stage, I prefer to use stuff like Bunks Create or npm, npx create, Vite, React, Next.js, whatever, basically a generator. And why would I choose to do this? These commands are created by the library authors themselves, and they pack together exactly the versions that they tested of linting, of tsconfig, etc. If you for example, ask an LLM via a prompt, hey, make me a project that uses Tailwind, you don't for sure know what you will get. Like, a lot of times you'll get Tailwind 3, but for a couple of months, Tailwind 4 is now actually the right version to use, and then on top of that you add Shetland UI, who would like to use the V4 version, and before you know it, you spend an hour trying to figure why Tailwind doesn't properly work, and yeah, you can save yourself a lot of time, at least initially, using generators. After this phase, I have something called bring your own or old in /own configs phase, where you basically you've worked on different projects before. A lot of them are similar. It's not, most of the times it's not something completely new. Why not just use something that you know it worked, you probably tweaked a lot and you're familiar with. So for example, like biome.js, and you can just adjust some ignore patterns to tailor it to the new projects, or tsconfig, perhaps you need to do little tweaks to the path aliases, or package.json, you have to just update some run scripts, but most of your dev dependencies that you also already know you will be used are there. Then perhaps you have some favorite GitHub workflows. You adjust the setup on push deployments. Perhaps a minimal agents MD file that you continuously use to start every project. It's key to be minimal because it will grow, and like the old ways of doing markdown files with hundreds of lines of code and tens of scattered cloud MD files all over the place kind of have proven not being that ideal. The smaller the context that runs on each iteration of the agent loop, the better. Then perhaps you have some utility folder with definitions of some agents, /commands, skills, etc. that you bring over to this new project. And as well, maybe you have some preferred small utilities that you keep using over and over and over. For example, as I mentioned, I like functions that return errors as values. So I have this small TypeScript file that contains one type definition and 3 utility functions, and basically wraps functions in tuples where the first value could be an error or null, and the second value is the actual value in case there's no error. It's basically copied from Go as the system. And I found this really helps clean up the code, and we'll see in a couple of minutes. It's useful both for humans and for agents. And as far as I know, I think Victor had a talk recently where he mentioned that there's a stage 0 proposal in JavaScript to adopt this pattern, but stage 0 means probably maybe AGI will be achieved before that happens. Okay, next, the context optimization phase. Maybe you inherited the project from someone, or maybe you just copied a project of yourself, like a repo, and start building on top of it. Like a house, I don't know, when you first enter it, you do some basic cleanup, like for example, tweak tests or add tests. If there are none, it's a good place to start. You can try to remove and spot unnecessary patterns, spot redundant duplication, try to better isolate modules maybe, and even remove that code, because especially in places where AI is used, there can be a surprisingly number of places when functions get created, the callees of those functions are no longer existent, but the functions just rest there like old school CSS files with 5,000 lines of properties that no one never deletes from, always adds to, because it's saved that way. Another thing that I try to do, regardless if it's a personal or not personal, like work-related project, is the concept that I think it's borrowed from Facebook to deploy on first day. Basically, the smallest the change, it could be as well as, I don't know, a button color change or an additional property that you add to a JSON response of an API. The key thing is to try to, as quickly as possible, get something from your local computer directly into prod. Because this will quickly identify friction very early, and you will know in advance where the problems lie. Maybe the CI is very sluggish and it takes 2 hours to run too many automation tests, or I don't know, code reviews are slow, or whatever. It basically helps you plan better to know from the start what the context is, and as well identify places where you can optimize this feedback loop, because this is actually a feedback loop. You develop something locally, or fine, you can develop it in the cloud with cloud agents, but still you don't develop it in prod, hopefully, and stuff needs to get to prod. The next phase is what I like to call the discovery phase. I don't do this for any tiny minutia of a feature, but for large changes, architectural decisions, I talk a lot with ChatGPT. Like, even if it's not necessarily directly professional project related, I see a tweet, I see some news, I try to bounce off ideas and compare different texts, and I'm wondering in which cases you can use something, in which cases you can use something else. And if you look through my personal ChatGPT history, it's full of all this kind of weird tech conversation, and I promise you that one, for example, is a real Linux command. Okay, after we've talked and ruminated and debated back and forth some architectural change, and have in mind all the things that we want and don't want to do, we move on to the distillation phase. Yeah, not this kind of distillation. Basically, what I mean by this phase conceptually, you try to identify the most minimal possible atom of the change that still carries some value, and perhaps you write that by hand because you want it to be in a certain way, like follow some coding guidelines, implement a certain interface, etc. And you kind of try to find small places where you can add such examples manually, or even with running very simple prompts to do them, if you really don't want to do anything by hand anymore. For example, you might even go to the extent of you having a /examples directory where you just write some code to exemplify the larger features, parts of the larger features that you want to create. And after this phase, basically, we you get to the grooming phase. God, these screenshots. Yeah, what do I mean by the grooming phase? Well, basically, you have some examples. Now it's time to kind of place some safeguards for the LLM to follow. You start editing your agent's MD file, or other places you add maybe a couple of skills, but specifically the previous step was highly useful because you now can reference exactly pieces of code and how stuff should look and feel if you have specific preferences. And yeah, skills, sometimes agents, they load them, sometimes they don't, but the agent's MD, at least as today, is the safest, most reliable way to give context that LLMs use. Then you enter the manual context heating phase. Like, I'm talking here about projects where you kind of want to architecture and have some cohesion in their elements, not vibe coded things where you really don't care about how stuff looks. So the manual hinting phase means you start a feature and you reference by hand different files in different examples. Like you say, okay, I want to implement an endpoint that handles authentication. Take a look in this file where I defined 3 utility functions. Then also be careful to update the Prisma schema that takes care of whatever. Basically, you are using the model, but you're giving a lot of context in the hope of kind of getting the feel of how the LLM views your code base, because this is kind of a learned skill that you can develop, and to verify, to at least at this early stage, to gatekeep or safeguard against drift. You would thoroughly review the code and maybe take like smaller iterations so you can watch what happens, what's the outcome of the different sub pieces of the code. And hopefully while you're doing this, there aren't any other people who just push bad code at the same time that make the model drift, because yeah, there's also, you have to kind of be careful about that as well, or you yourself don't get lazy at this stage. So basically this stage kind of looks like this. In all honesty, you're trying to just keep all your ducks in the row, or cats in this example, for a period of time. The good news is that after some time, and it depends on the project, how big, how clean or not clean it is, how many contradictory patterns already exist, you do get over this stage and you get to the golden phase of autopilot. Woohoo! And it will still fail. As we see in this image, this is a reference to the first time that the Tesla AI actually saw a carriage run by a horse. It couldn't figure out what it is, and it drew a truck, and then some guy on top of the truck, then on the back of the truck, and then it became a tractor, and it just couldn't. Yeah. Hopefully, and not just hopefully, agents do get better, and these cases should get rarer and rarer, and you kind of can eventually get in a, so to say, autopilot mode. Congratulations, 10 steps, and now you're a 10x developer thanks to AI. Oh, there's one more thing. Entropy. What is entropy? is the only thing that IT projects cannot escape. Basically, from the moment you do your first classic initial commit message, stuff just accumulates, features, code grows. There's this word that the only code with no bugs is no code, and the bigger the code base grows, and it will grow, it will eventually lead to a halt. Uh, this sounds kind of dramatic, but there are ways to maximize the longevity. Like some unfortunate projects may live 5 years, others 10, others, I don't know, 40 years, if we take into consideration the Linux kernel or some, I don't know, COBOL code in some banking system. It's lived to see a lot of things. But yeah, regardless, stuff piles, drift happens, and you try to do what you can do to avoid it, to prolong the livelihood of the project. LLMs don't necessarily help, because actually what happens? Code gets added a lot more, a lot faster, and a lot harder to keep track of. So if you can't always track yourself the code, best thing that I guess you could do is try to ensure that the LLMs add the right kind of code. So from time to time, have kind of refactoring sessions, even if not blocked and not developing features. In the back of your mind, know that, or just run some command, hey, see if there are any duplicates function in this module of our project, and add it to a backlog, or fix it right there if it's simple to fix and there's not many things affected. Of course, you need lots of tests for this to be sure that you don't try to fix something and everything breaks. But that's one of the other key things that you will see over and over, and I believe it really helps, is tests. Having lots and lots of tests, and not just for the kind of tests for the sake of coverage, where you test that the line gets printed with a console log, but really targeted tests to try to catch regression. On models and tools, I don't have a recipe. I can tell you that I personally prefer to use open code, because yeah, personally I like CLIs, and it's highly configurable. I code using NeoVim, much less than I used to, because now honestly most of the development happens with an AI agent. But there are cases or times when you want to by hand fix some stuff, or let's say you want to pull a PR locally and run through the code, use the go to definition to quickly jump through functions to get a better feel of changes and how modules and pieces of code communicate with each other. And sometimes I find it not easy to do in a, I don't know, 50 file diff PR that you just read like a book. Hopefully you read it like a book. Yeah, and regarding coding models, I prefer the latest ChatGPT versions. It's kind of what I like. They give good feedback. I didn't notice errors lately, like any, to the point that you can say you can kind of trust the models with most things most of the time. And I'm talking about implementation level, like functions and stuff like that, not necessarily architectural decisions, but if you need some small thing to do, they just do it, and they do it even pretty clean. Of course, you can use Cloud Code or Cursor or cloud models if you prefer, and if you, of course, don't like open source and hate it. Okay, moving on. That was a joke, by the way. I have some kind of case studies from the app that I built that I will really quickly get over them, because I am being signaled that in the interest of time I need to fly through this remaining part of the talk. So at first I defined what I want, how I want stuff to be built, by quickly adding a coding style and convention to the agent MD plus verification steps. Then I decided what exactly to use, and here is kind of a prompt that I use. Let's just read this. Maybe it's informative. So at some point I wanted to decide what web server specifically to use, and I kind of started like this. Let's make a back and forth comparison between Bun's built-in HTTP server and Hono for a specific project that I'm building. Present pros and con arguments. I will push back with some personal insights and preferences. Then we will analyze together each key point, finally deciding which stack is probably ideal specifically for the given scenario, because it's pointless to ask ChatGPT what's better, Bun server or Hono. It depends on what you're trying to use it for. So continuing, for context, I'm building a Bun simple single file executable CLI. This way it gets a hint that I'm already using the Bun environment that needs to use a web server internally to serve an index.html page, some helper routes for token validation and serving cached assets. This is key, cached assets, because I know from start that I'm going to serve fonts, and hopefully some built-in asset cache management would be ideal, like Bun already has. WebSocket communication is a first-class citizen, because I kind of know that that's the way the client and the server will communicate, but I'm not expecting more than 50 concurrent connections, at least for this initial stage of the project. That also grounds it not to come to me with over complicated solutions, or if, I don't know, the standard built-in Bun server can handle 50 concurrent WebSocket connections, and also has cache invalidations, and also has a lot of stuff. It's pointless to pick, for example, Hono, which is maybe more powerful, but it's an additional third-party system that you would have to bring into your own system. I went through some unexpected stuff, like FZF didn't work. I'll quickly go through it. How I figured this is an interesting story. I tried to figure out what was causing the problems. I really couldn't, even with the help of the agents, try different solutions, spent a lot of time debugging, to the point where I remembered that OpenCode, the web interface, actually has a built-in web terminal, and I knew that they use Ghostty Web, so it's kind of the same thing. I knew it was built on Bun, so why their version was working. So what I did, and this is a great tip that's highly successful, don't rely on web fetch calls when you can just download the source code for some tool and point the LLM, hey, 2 levels above this directory is the source code for FZF and Bun. Look through it, or look through this package and find usage, compatibility problems, bugs, etc. Yeah, I already mentioned that you have to add custom controls on mobile. The Open OSK on-screen keyboard management API, it's really cursed, especially on Safari. If you want to develop something responsive on iOS Safari, and you want to flip the phone in one way and the other, and you need to finally have resizing so the keyboard doesn't cover the text or whatever you have. Yeah, it's been a tricky part. You cannot paste in iOS Safari if you use an event handler or on a button. This is totally unexpected, but if you have a button with a click handler that uses the paste API, you just get, I don't know if this is quite visible, direct clipboard read is unavailable. Read text is not supported. So the hack that I did was actually display a native browser pop-up with an input where you can manually paste text using the native iOS control inside the input, and when clicking OK, the value would be read in JavaScript and feeded into wherever you need it. It's hacky, it works, it's better than not having this the paste feature. Then lastly, bleeding edge solutions have bugs. So did the Ghostty web package that I used. Long story short, you can use LLMs to patch different versions of existing tools, and also place pointers inside of agents MD to remember even themselves. When you want to upgrade maybe a package, they will know, hey, I have a patch for this, let me just first test if there's regression or not, and safely remove or update the patch, etc. Cleanup time, even at this kind of small to medium project, in size and complexity, I started noticing some drift. And imagine I was the single person adding this, and it doesn't have a lot of features, but after some point of features and complexity, you feel the LLM starts to run slower. And no, it's not because of the API quotas themselves or that you're envisioning things. It's just a lot more context that it has to dig through. And then that's the right point to take a step back and see if you can refactor some stuff, like maybe declare better module boundaries. One thing that helps is adding a repo map where you don't list every single file, but you can list important files, and that's a good reference for the AI agent to pick up. Other things that you can do is, if you want, try the error as values pattern that I keep mentioning about, because it really does clean up the code quite a bit. And I had some guardrails with the agent to kind of estimate the readability of the code before and after, before it was scattered with different try-catch statement, different try-catch branches in multiple places, and that brings indirection. After the refactor that all the functions used its pattern, it estimated a 40 to 60% complexity decrease. Now, I don't know, maybe 60% is an exaggeration, as LLMs tend to do, but it was cleanly more readable, at least to me, and the LLMs seem to pick up context faster and simpler afterwards. But I could just as well be totally biased and, without realizing, giving some personal opinions on this, but I think it helps. Security is important. I'm just jumping over the slide with security is important without mentioning it. And the last thing, I wanted docs for my 0 users, but I didn't want to write docs documentation. So this one was really a mind blower. I just told the agent, hey, analyze the code base, extract valuable information, uh, use the Astro Starlight generator. I knew that was a good one for static files, and just create me a doc site. And to be honest, I was pretty blown away, not necessarily by the design, but it identified good readable structure for the contents. It had everything you would need, like start here, detailed examples. It extracted how to use functions, how to pass parameters, a thing that would really take quite some time to manually do. So from all the things that I experimented with, this one was the one that surpassed my expectations the most. Future plans, I want to integrate the Pi agent in the terminal, so it becomes kind of my own warp. So you don't have to have an agent installed on your system. You just take this, you install it on whatever fresh box, and you have an agent out of the box. And I want to create a kind of the glue shell using Electron to have multiple instances of it running. And in closing thoughts, go build something that you truly care about. Do it through a learning lens, not through a I want 100 things done until tonight. And share it with others. Maybe your tweet too can inspire someone else to go to a rabbit trail dive. Thank you. And if you have feedback for both talks, you can use the QR code to leave your feedback.